Welcome everyone to another episode of Future of Data newscast. Today it's week 33, and that means it's another odd week. That means Tao has a newsletter for all of us, and this one is the best one yet. I don't know. We'll see. But I think I'm very positive this one is going to be super exciting. And I have with me
I enjoyed it.
Maria. Hey Maria, how are you?
Hi, Michelle. Good, good. I enjoyed this newsletter this week,
This is
so I'm excited to get into it.
yes, I agree. How was the week for you, Maria?
Oh, very good, very good. We have, a lot going on, and the pace gets quicker and quicker. Technology and data science, and so it's always good to hear the good news of how it's used.
Nice, and I think yeah, it's pretty cool. So I let's get on the newsletter because I want to just get on. I think it's a bunch of interesting stuff. So let's get to the main thing. So cover of the week. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a funny little graph here. Number of husbands by statistics. Um, it's a little stick figure guy talking to another stick figure person with a bride's halo's not the right word. Tiara. I don't
Yeah.
know what the right word for that
Right.
is. And they're saying, as you can see, by late next month, you'll have over 4 dozen husbands. Better get a bulk rate on wedding cake. And so they used a plot to show this.
So I think yeah. So yeah. So it's a funny little animation to our audience. So it's I think it's the joke on the extrapolation. So
Yeah,
the argument is last week I'm not married, so I had zero husband and zero. Now this month I have one husband, and if I keep going, probably in couple of weeks I'll have multiple husbands. That's I think the joke is that hey, get your cakes ready. You probably will be getting a lot of grooms very time soon. So
yeah.
this is actually
At this rate.
this is and it's a predictive analytics problem. I think this is interesting. It's funny, and in fact, you must have noticed, Maria, that I think newsletter has covered a lot of grounds on this extrapolation phenomena. I think that's going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
So now
yeah.
let's get to the analytics week bites. So these are the blogs that are posted on Analytics Week platform. And let's see what we have in store for us. So the first blog is 5 steps to transform HR with predictive talent analytics. What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, this week, Tao usually has like a theme and it keeps bringing up a certain theme. And I think this week it was a little salt and peppered. So we have a couple themes from the last few weeks that are intertwined here. And the HR ones I think are really interesting because it's addressed in all of the different topics that deal with what's coming up with the future, because talent and how the quality of that talent is and the way we find it is really important for being effective and efficient. And so I think that these articles on talent are really important.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think this even it's interesting. I think it's interesting what you took from the theme because I think I picked two very predominant theme from this. I think extrapolation. I think that's pretty much like what you can what and the other theme that I picked uh, from this theme is the governance. So at least on the
Mm.
media end, there was like lot of talks around governance, and on the content side, I see like and then we'll see. So in this and I think this is a 5 step to transform HR is it's again it's a beautiful blog, and for our audience, I think what they are saying is that when you grow in your predictive talent analytics, so you need to get your like first understand the assets, and for talent analytics the asset is the team, right? Understand the team, and then understand your current status, like what's your square one right now, where do you stand now, right, and
Mhm.
where are you getting to, and then pretty
Mhm.
much like discuss, talk about it, and discuss all the best practices. Be very open about discussing your data and analytics. And third is train them. And I think if you one thing that interesting that jumps out in this phenomena is pretty much like maturity model, right? So these five
Mhm.
steps are nothing but like maturity stages, right? So first I need to understand where I am, keep doing the stuff that
Mhm.
I'm doing, and then pretty much I said, okay, I want to learn about this new stuff. That means I have to understand my status, and then let me try small use cases. That's, I think that's equivalent here to understand the KPIs, right, where you want to head to. And then you talk about, hey, let me just bring everyone into this dialogue of learning. And then once you became the mastery, you say, okay, now let me train others. That, like, I have some best bunch of best practices that we can work on. Why don't we share it with the audience? So this is a very it's like an endorsement to maturity model. And I think and Maria, so I've been telling even a lot of my client engagements that maturity, like, whenever, it's a beautiful thing. I think I should write a blog about it. Like, we don't talk about
Mhm.
maturity model that much in data analytics, because
Mhm.
it's pretty new. The data strategy is pretty new, but almost everywhere which are legacy old, people know it's as a part of a playbook. Like, you just have to
Mhm.
understand your maturity model. That will give you a perspective, and then from that perspective, you say, okay, this is where I stand, this is where I need to be, and then you travel that journey. What do you think?
Right. Right. Yeah, because you definitely need to know. You have to have 2 points so that you can get somewhere, right?
Right.
So, yeah, definitely think that establishing those things as you are, entering any project or any collaboration, or, just trying to figure out what you're doing with what you're studying. These are, the important factors. Where are you now? And being honest with that, because that's also, the theme of biases can also creep into that, and we can have a conversation about that. But where you are, and honest about that, where you're trying to be, and what the details of that looks like, and then you can embark on the journey of how do we get there, and then how do we be more efficient about getting there.
Right. No, I
So
think
I
that's
think that whether it's in HR or in, a research project or study, these same principles apply.
I agree. I think couldn't have said any better. Totally in agreement with you. So the next one is 4 ways healthcare data analysts can provide their full value. What do you think about this one?
All right. So it was just,
So this one, I think it
oh, the
talks.
healthcare one, right?
Yeah.
With the healthcare one. Okay. So this one, healthcare is such a big topic right now, and all of the things. I mean, it's so amazing the things that are coming out, with the healthcare technology. So a lot of this data has um, a lot to do with how well of we can innovate with these things. So, and also serving, building innovations and building processes that serve the users or the customers or the community, keeping those in mind. And so I think that, when we talk about this very early stages of data capturing and data, collection, thinking about that end process, like we were talking in the previous section, makes for wonders when you're doing the data collection, because that quality of the data will just be so much more rich, and the later processes of analyzing will be so much cleaner. So I think this one, going through those, basic steps of capturing the data and then how to make it meaningful is, I really like that article using the healthcare data
Hmm.
and healthcare as the base case study for that model.
Okay. So well said, Maria. I think what I'm thinking. So again, I think this is a beautiful blog, by the way. So it
Yeah.
it talks about, and again, it somehow um, picks some idea from the previous blog. right? And it says, okay, it talks about the journey of what you can do, right, to understand, and sort of it gives you a kind of a version of what are the four ways to you can provide their full value. So they're saying, a, first understand all the data, right? So it's actually going in the same direction of maturity model. It's saying get every data in house, and then test the data, like let people test it, let
Mm-hmm.
people understand and play along and see what the hell is happening. And then you provide tools to the stakeholder, provide them tools, and the fourth stage is give them direction on what to do. And I think one very interesting key insight here, that I may not agree with slightly with this article. So I
Hmm.
think I'm going to show this. I don't know if you can see this. Uh,
It's a
it's a
skull. I see
it's a pirate. So be
a
the
pirate.
be the
Okay.
data. I think be the data pirate, right? So that's the point. So so that the argument is, don't tell them the playbook. So you have given them tool, you have empowered them, and let them figure their pieces out. Sure, there would be like some kind of moderation needed, because you don't want everyone to just be traversing wherever and wherever and whoever. So it's a very very cool read, by the way, to understand sort of, again, very. So one thing that jumps out is understand your assets. That's your data or your people or whatever thing that you hold dear, and then provide some play toy or some testing mechanism to test that data, because you have hypothesis, you can pre-hypothesis, post-hypothesis, like you can work on those analysis, and then tool it, like give great tools. Once you have created sort of some capabilities, build that capability or appify that capability into a tool, and then give everyone tool and say, hey, have fun, and give them enough training that gets them on the tool. That's it. Let them sort of play around or have fun. Very good blog. And I think it's not only applicable for healthcare, it's applicable all across. And I think it's just it's mind boggling. So again, very good piece of content from the perspective of thinking in that direction. So this is pretty awesome. Now get to the next one. And I know, Maria, I have a hunch why Tao picked it. So I'll tell you quickly. So
Okay, because I was wondering. I was wondering
the
about
the
one.
blog is Innovalence, next generation big data platform solution achieves NCQA measure certification. Bunch of jargons, by the way. But it's a press release about a product that was released at
Yes.
some point in, and it talks about talent analytics. It talks about it talks about um, what it's basically. NCQA is National Committee of Quality Assurance. So it's just putting an emphasis on um, what is the effectiveness of data, and like understanding the quality and value based outcomes. So I think one thing that is great in this. So the theme is, I think, understand your assets. I think that's what I can figure out what the hell is going on. And it's a beautifully laid out article on the fact that if you have a product, like, so it's talking about um, basically how to create a health effectiveness data archive. So it basically it helps us understand what all is at stake, what all it takes to design that system. So from that perspective, it's a quality and what do you mean by quality and value based outcome? I think many of the consulting that I end up that I engage with, many of these guys talk about value, like not talk about value based outcome. So there is a very strong likelihood that you say, hey, I have this thought, let me just start analyzing it, right? So you don't understand the value of what you're trying to do achieve from that, and that's a very big distraction for every business. Like you end up wasting a lot of time with probably no buy-ins. So I think
Hmm.
what Tao is trying to say is, it's a press release, mind you. So it's not really uh, actually it's not a press release. It's actually it's a press release. So yeah, so it's trying to
Yeah, I think it was like show. Yeah, it was launching this product here.
right. So it it,
Yeah.
it, it gives a lot of insights on what it takes to sort of build that build that capability. I think it's a beautiful read to understand what it takes to design a system that gives you real time quick analytics and all that in health space. So what do you think, Maria?
Yeah, and it identifies the gaps, that there are in the quality of the data and then data integrity, and that helps with the performance of finances, and everybody is, paying attention to that. So you can definitely learn something from looking at, press releases like this and articles about some products that had come out in the past, and also looking at their impact, because I thought it was really interesting that the platform, it says, is informed by data pertaining to more than 750,000 physicians, 248,000 clinical facilities, and 120 million Americans that provided, data, that contributed to data to this. So, I mean, these are some, very deep insights can be found in here when you're
Right.
looking through the right lenses and you apply the right tools. So these impacts, they impact a lot of people, and it's important, I think, to look at, how the timeline of what happens, how we get more efficient when we're using these kind of tools and products. So
Right. No, I think that's well said. Again, it's also a quick journey into health analytics space, right? What all keywords? It has tons of keywords that are relevant. It's a very regulated industry, so a lot of stuff happening there and a lot of regulation that businesses have to run around. So this actually is another. I think one more thing that I like about this article is it explains you very clearly what exactly they are doing, what is quality, and which all certification they have to cross by, and what is MCQ certification. So it pretty much gives you a quick rundown into the health analytics space or health or wellness space. So again, very
yeah, I
good
don't know
article.
how much insight or how much you've dealt with that space, but they're so involved. Every space has their deep level of details and involvement. And clinical trials have so many processes.
Oh,
It's
it
intense.
it is intense. Like I used to talk. So I think last year I spoke with one of the pharmaceutical company in Boston. They're one of the chief designer of the research or the clinical trial study, and he was discussing that how inefficient their process is. Like how they just bundle things up, and for any FDA approval they just wrap things up and just ship it there, and they never look at the data back. So I said, and they could easily repurpose the old data to further enhance the future studies in different clinical trials, but they don't share. And even
Mhm.
one pharmaceutical company doesn't share information with the other one. So it's such a freaking waste. And I know Obama's administration at one point. It's oh man. Anyways, so it they did something called Transcelerate. Something they started creating an initiative in which pharmaceutical companies could share their clinical data
Mm.
through some ontological, like creating some ontology, and then like, share. I don't know where it is that now. It was a nightmare then.
Yeah.
It's it's I don't know what's happening to that now. So
Yeah, well, I know
interesting.
that there's a lot of people who are passionate and care about helping others that go into this healthcare space, and they, look at, the traditional doctor path as, this is incorporating more and more data has to be incorporated more and more into that profession, and there's a conversation there that has to happen, or that's happening between the profession and then like the behind the scenes. And so those that care, they can really get in on the data side and still do a lot of good and help with a lot of different ailments and things that we
Right.
can find solutions
I,
for.
I, I agree. I agree.
So there's
So
just so many options, even though there is like a lot of controversy and debate on the different policies, but we also need people involved on the science side so we can better discuss, the policy side.
it's a big debate. So now let's get to the news bites. The next section. So it's okay. Ashley Madison. So for our audience who don't know what the background behind this phenomena was, so
Oh
there
yeah,
was, it was a
a
site
security breach.
for pretty much like anyone. I don't know. Like you just Google it. It's beyond our scope of explaining what Ashley Madison is supposed to do. But it was there was a big hack or a big breach of data, and
Yeah.
the subscriber of Ashley Madison were made public, and then it was a huge reputational impact for anyone who signed up for on this platform. And then this was just talking about a court ruling or to give $11 million to the as a compensation to people who got impacted by this site. So this I think this brings up an interesting conversation on what is the cost of security, like what's the cost of breach, right? So this is
Mhm.
one of the quantify, although it's a class action, so it's a quantifiable number. Because I think I was talking in one of or we were discussing, Maria, in one of the previous podcast, or at least newscast, that how to price a hack, right? How
Mm.
much of hacking is actually worrying about your infrastructure, or how much you just say, hey, I assume it's going to be hacked, let me just put a number, financial number around it, and just run by that thought. So how much of this is financial engineering vis-a-vis how much of this is actually technical or IT engineering to
Mhm.
secure your business? Because like you are relying on third party software, you're not going to get super secure anyways, because there's constant patch coming out, there's constant changes, one thing could break to the another, and things are not often appropriately synced between the updates. So there would be like always vulnerabilities available to something that is constantly changing. How can a business secure? And I actually one of the podcasts that might come out maybe in a couple of weeks about I spoke to this security one of the security professional, and he shared that many of the insurance companies are actually looking into this problem. So they are coming up with the phenomena of hey, what if I just price, like we can just buy insurance for our business. So Ashley Madison would buy an insurance and they'll pay this $11 million, and
Mhm.
it's just a financial engineering. And regardless
Yeah.
how much it impact and what's the cost of the impact, but if 11 million is what it takes, can it be a financial engineering problem vis-a-vis a technical fixation problem or something? What do you think, Maria?
Yeah, I also think I'm going to open a little bit can of worms with this because this company, Ashley Madison, they have a history of doing other dating sites. So they control a dating site for, I think it's specifically for married folks to find affairs.
Hmm.
So they have other dating sites as well, but with this one, having that confidentiality and so forth, the end just kind of like they didn't want to go any further investigations because just this, like let's own up to the breach and get it, try to get it resolved. But once this was opened as a lawsuit, many other things came into light about their practices. So, they had fake accounts that they were putting on to instigate more traffic, that they were using the information in other ways to create more advertising that would be questionable ethically. So, you know, this financial question of how much are you going to save with some of these breaches, not having a lawsuit at all, kind of helps the company make sure that no other areas get exposed, that there's a lot of moving parts, and so as you grow you're not going to be able to cover all of those things at the same time. But having I just think that these security breaches, starting the process off, being sure that you're safe means many different levels, not just, the data is out, but also
Right.
like how you're doing the practices and the integrity of the company and like what they're doing. So, um, the breaches I think are important for, both sides to identify, what companies are to be having, to have transparency so that they, can share the things that are going to, help them be successful, but at the same time be safe, so that
Right.
their customers and the people that respect them are going to continue seeing them that way.
No, it's. I think
So,
it's a. So and actually, I was discussing this idea of peeling the onion, right? So once things hit the fan, then you start peeling the onion. What the hell happened, and why the hell happened, and then you realize a lot of can of worms will start opening, as you very rightly pointed out. That security was an issue, fake account was an issue. Whatever you did to get your business through that cliff, or at least through the peak. So businesses do all weird kind of things, right? But I think the bigger impact is to the audience, like to whoever sign up for this platform, right? The reputational risk, and it's like it's just bizarre. And I think one thing that I would so this gentleman suggested that so at one point T-Mobile CEO, I guess he said there are only two type of businesses: ones who are hacked and ones who don't know it yet. So once you assume that philosophy, right, and you always assume that whatever you're putting anywhere or wherever you're signing up, that information could be compromised at some point. So you will be a lot more cognizant in where to engage and how, and from there on, and I think everyone has to pre-assume that if something fishy happens, what is the cope-up mechanism? Like, aren't you? So I think even in social media feeds, right? Sometimes you don't even know. Like I see a lot of young millennials and a lot of young folks posting interesting stuffs on Facebook that might at some point come down, uh, hunting them back on what has happened and all that. So I think it's again it's a can of worms. So I think we can pretty much sit here for the entire like 3 months and still get nowhere with the idea of security and what's happening. But I think the bigger point that was conveyed on this blog was $11 million for a breach. Is that, and that's what I read, that is this a financial engineering problem, or it's really like but it's a issue. So to our audience, I think cybersecurity is a rapidly fired up domain, and almost I was talking to one of the insurance executive, and they were discussing that how it's like their insurance companies is considering this kind of specialty insurance of cybersecurity and all that. So insurance companies are looking into this domain of would it be a would it be a financial engineering problem more than a technological hiccups that any, because businesses are not like, you cannot tell business not to run, right? That's their core competency, is to just find a way to make money and just scale it as fast as possible. So it just, they have to find a way around, and I think it's a compromise between security and taking risk, and if you get sort of stuck in the middle, you get stuck in the middle. So interesting, interesting read. I think, and as I said, we can talk entire day and still go nowhere with but it's a very cool topic to learn. And let's go to the next read. Doug Leby
okay.
answers burning questions on product roadmap, SAP. So what do you think?
Okay, this one was just
So basically, it's talking
pulling up.
about
So I do remember pieces of it, though. I like the roadmap idea. It was
so I think one thing that was pretty cool, and in this one maybe Tao may be selling itself. In this one, I think it's talent analytics, and it's the idea of future of work. So to our audience, I think so it talks about um, Doug Leby answers for one of the like few questions on what would happen to VMS. VMS is vendor management system, by the way, and there's a company called IQ Navigation, and they does VMS. And recently, I think there was an acquisition by Adecco on Beeline, and they were trying to figure out how they can work with IQ Navigator on VMS, vendor management system, or freelance management system. So I think the bigger piece that was relevant in this particular write up was the talent analytics, and how companies are sort of prepping for that. So the very fact that there is something called freelance analytics platform, or freelance management system, or vendor management system when it comes to workforce, that means there's I think these are the words that are, and they're saying VMS is obsolete. So they are talking about how, so if you acquire a product or a company with obsolete, or at least dying product, or at least product with lessening demand, how you cope up. Like, you just can't really willy-nilly close it, because there's existing client using it, the existing businesses relying on those products. So it pretty much, so Doug does a very good job in explaining and walking through what are some of the challenges or emotional and technical challenges that you have to answer or address when you deal with such products and services which are not at the prime and probably going down, but how you can transition over to the new systems by keeping still the essence of the old one, because those customer relied on your platform then and they're relying on a platform now, and it's not their core competency to be understanding like that thing getting obsolete. So you have to create a very smooth roadmap uh, to transition them from obsolete to the new age solutions. And he was very candid about discussing what happens with the merger of such capabilities, how businesses react. I think that's pretty cool to learn. So,
Yeah,
any thoughts, Maria, on that?
I just was wanted to do more research on the field glass, and the different
Hmm.
platforms, because they're saying that in this article talked about, it's imperative to use multiple platforms. So
Right. Interesting. So the next one says Cisco boost for cybersecurity skill shortage in South Africa.
yeah,
Uh,
we were just talking about cyber security. Yeah,
Cybersecurity. That's another,
yeah,
yeah. That's I see a predominant theme. So I think this write up talks about and this is again a very good write up. So it talks about how Cisco is growing, creating awareness by partnering with learning systems that are local there, because most of these businesses, whether it's Cisco, Intel, like all these guys, they are relying heavily on talent pool, like the new age talent pool, and their ability to acquire good talent pool fast enough to keep them in the next age of technological evolution. So it gives it gives a kind of a very cool endorsement on what all some of the businesses do to actually fill in the gap, and from there on create awareness. Because I think one of the things um, that one needs to make sure is you need to prime the market before you start extracting value from, or providing value in it. So this is one of those initiatives, like what you can do, like businesses need to always, like Cisco and all these platforms, they always are working, part of their business is always working on the next stage phenomena. So they have substantial sort of maturity, or enough maturity to understand how they can sort of compete in this new age. So this is one of the write-ups to pretty much help us understand the playbook, Cisco's playbook, on how they fill in the gap, talent gap, and then fix and grow in it. What do you think, Maria?
yes, and how they make sure that those skills are there, so that some of those breaches are not just a lack of training,
Right.
and that yeah. So I do like how it said, it's not a matter of if it'll happen or not. Cybersecurity threats are all over the place. It's just a matter of when. And so being like hyper aware and vigilant are just half the battle, right? So
Right.
you know what's coming. So Cisco is doing that, helping educate more of its folks in South Africa,
Right.
which makes cybersecurity the fourth largest, most reported economic crime in South Africa. So that's also um, something that this article goes through.
And I think, it also sort of cuts, and Maria, you raised an interesting point. So it cuts on the merger of when the government meets the technologies, right? So when the trade meets the technology. So this is one of those areas, right? So if the impact is massive and there's people's life getting ruined, so now trade is coming into picture, saying, oh, there needs to be a law protection or some regulation that protect, that somewhat provide some kind of base level security, and then obviously there would still be breaches, but at least people are not motivated to get into that domain or so-called ethical hacking, or in a very unethical way or something. So interesting. So let's talk about the featured course, machine learning. So this is sure, like we cannot, and it's interesting. Like we never saw any newsletter without the mention of machine learning. What the hell?
Yeah, there's always been some kind of AI, machine learning
Some it's
reference,
just
because,
it just it
but I don't think you can ignore it either, because it's definitely part of the
may,
innovation.
maybe Tao is showing off. I don't know what the hell. Like I
Yeah.
like I at some point I want to see something that okay. It's so like there's some things machine learning, AI. Like you want to hear what's happening around, like somewhere else, somewhere quieter that people have not, and pretty much dig something there. It's just like every freaking thing, either one, two, three, or four articles just saying, whoa. Anyways, you rightly said machine learning. We all need to know. So
Yeah. At least
and
some kind of understanding of, what it's doing behind the scenes, And I think this is a really great free course from Stanford. Um, and it goes through 20 hours, if you ever read the Outliner book by Malcolm Gladwell or any of the others that promote this like learning based off of hours, here's your first 20 hours.
right.
Is the free course right here. So it seems to be pretty. It has the handouts and other resources, and it seems to be pretty dense with robotics and data mining and bioinformatics, speech recognition, which I know is hot, and text and web data processing. So it would be something that would definitely give you some reference points on machine learning and why it would be important on so many
Right.
levels.
No, I think you're spot on, Maria. So I think so best 20 hours spent for sure. Because I think one thing that I liked about this program is so if I try to understand what all queries I get to understand what the hell is machine learning. So there's supervised learning, unsupervised learning. There's how the learning system works, what are learning theories existing in the market. It covers all of those, right? So obviously it assumes that you should know probability. Like you should know some things. You should know base level of that. There's a linear model. So not a rocket science, baby. Like you maybe. So they're like maybe 1 hour of pre-reading to understand what the hell is going on. But then you're ready for this course, and instantly in 20 hours you know many of these keywords, what the hell they mean, why, where the hell you use them, what the hell you do with that, and some of those like hells that you can work around these sort of use cases. So again, beautiful course, and if Tao is picking it, Tao knows its thing, so it knows that at least it's popular. So it's there's no AI in like Tao is not and that's why I think I've said before, maybe I want Tao to pick creepy courses. Like I want to see that Tao pick one of the worst picked course ever by any humanity possible. That would be like, wow, this is something
That would
new.
be like.
It's you as I think at some point we want some serendipity, like we want some randomness. Like it just posts some Hollywood movie trailer or whatever. It's I
Yeah,
don't
and
know,
then you have
but
is random really random.
it's I don't like still I want to be surprised that hey, so far I know it's picking cool stuffs, but what if I think that's and actually that part is covered by our next those what if scenarios, what will happen if, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what I was just thinking. I was like, well, that's a really great segue into the next book, The Black Swan, by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Did I say that right?
yes,
Well, this makes me want to go find the audiobook to that, because it definitely talks about capturing that which we do not know and trying to be prepared for that. Talks about the impact of things that are highly improbable yet happen anyway. Right? And this is what we are trying to figure out, especially everyone in their what they're using their data for in their respective disciplines and areas of interest. There's just so many times in history and so many things that even though we think we have it together and we think we figured it out, something surprises us,
I
and
think,
what we
yeah.
need to do with it. So this book, I think, I was really interested in seeing if I can get an audiobook for this one soon.
And again, amazing job by Nassim Taleb. I think he's a philosophical political writer, right? So he understand the nuances of how the technology could impact political and philosophical scenarios. Like, so he understands those or sort of cracks that we don't see through our like through our eyes. But I think one thing that I am so it's a very alarming book, by the way. So I think bunch of the cool things about this is it's pointing to the idea of error bars, that we talk a lot in this podcast, that not every model is applicable in every scenario, and if you rely too much on the model, then when it breaks, it just breaks hard because you have not seen the impact of what happens when things break. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, you cannot go in the analysis paralysis, right? You cannot just kill yourself analyzing things and figuring out everything that could go ever wrong, and still survive the pace of the business. So it's a constant battle, to sort of should I analyze this much and then act, should I act analyze more and act less. So this it although it talks about those moments, right? It talks about how, like, what happens if the system handles disorders or chaos, right? What will happen to the system? But it's a constant battle between the performance and like efficiency and accuracy. So you want things efficient or you want things accurate. So many times you presume that, okay, and I think that's it's partly the conversation is, I think it's also in the security space as well, right? You cannot fix everything. You cannot overly sort of equip yourself to be right. Something will get out of hand, some conflict between two developers not thinking it through about their modules. When the code hits in between them, something cracks, and that you have not the testers might have not picked. What will happen then? And it was weird, actually. So very alarming book. It definitely, if you are insomniac, if you don't like sleeping in the night, this is not the book for you. You If you are depressed, this is not the book for you. If you are stand-up comedian, maybe this is again not the book for you. So this is just, I think this is just to get your mind right that things could go wrong. And
Yeah.
the moment you are buying this book, and this is what I think about these books,
Okay.
the fact that you think you should buy this book, you don't need to, right? So you understand what you to expect in this book, right? So that very fact. So again, beautiful book. And as you rightly said, Maria, this is also in my bucket list of books that I need to read over next 3 months. So
Yeah.
definitely,
The reviews definitely say, you get a perspective of reality, that makes you think a little differently. And I'm always interested in having a different way of approaching um, something that I'm looking at. So um,
so yeah, it's
I just found it interesting for that reason.
so yeah, and I think fun book. Let's see. Definitely, I've heard about it. I have read few synopses about it. So, but definitely a good book to check out, and pretty much like keep at the back of the mind to what the hell is happening. So now let's go to the tips and tricks of the week. So we have this is one of the cheesy ones, by the way. This is something that I
Yeah.
wrote. It's one of those, what the hell, we know. So it's a strong business case could save your project. And I think when I wrote this, it was actually, it came out of a need. So I think there was a conversation that happened that there was a some guy was he was trying to sell his agenda to his leadership on like how they can sort of create a data science team and how it can deliver value, and the leadership was not buying it. So he tried to tell them how beautiful the outcome is going to be, what's going to, like what to expect from this, what's happening, but he's not building a good enough strong business case. Like he was not telling business the current problem that they are having and how it could solve it, although it's a
Mm-hmm.
very visionary idea, things look beautiful, and you hear this like I don't want to talk about it, it's that cliche and creepy, but it's so much inefficient, like it's still difficult to find um, many of our conversation. People have not thought think through a good business case.
Hmm.
So and they're just hitting their head on the wall. It's not going to change anything. It's just going to hurt you. That's pretty much what's going to happen. So you need to build up that case. So business can end up business. They're typically they want to hear about risks and they want to solve business problems. So it's not that they're not listening. The moment you don't get heard, I think about your story, because businesses understand they can talk in different stories. So this is I think one of those things in which yeah, I have to write about it.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah, you make it relatable. They have to be relatable.
right,
So
exactly. So anyways, I don't want to spend again. Everyone knows this, and let's move on to the next one. So data science Q&A.
oh yeah, so the idea of the false positive and the false negative. You're going to tell us about that, right?
It's this will again. I think this will be the shortest podcast ever. I don't, let's see. So yeah, false positives and false negatives. What the hell? And I think
Yeah, well, it happens a lot in healthcare, when they're testing, but I think that I've seen it applied to models before. I
you're
don't,
right.
yeah. Do you have you seen it applied to models before?
Oh, it's supply chain. It's production lines, right? So any Sigma 6 compliant manufacturing lines. So the false positive and false negatives are important, right? So they want to, because they are tracking the errors, right? And then once the error shows up, they want to figure out what the hell, where the hell, and from there on, they try to fix things. So if there's false positive, it's like they react. If it's a false negative, it depends what. I think one thing that needs we need to understand is, say, if you want, like, first we have to understand the positive and negative, and then the entire context change here, right? So in this particular
Mm-hmm.
example, they put an example of HIV. So in HIV, it's good, like the negative is good than the positive, right? So you don't want to be HIV positive. So in that case, that what they're saying is, so the typical example is where false positive is better than false negative, and vice versa. And they're saying, hey, if if when false negative is better than false positive, means if we know early enough that there's HIV positive, you can fix that problem. So if it's a deadly disease, you would rather be false negative than false positive, right? So you would rather know and test and clear it out of the system rather than ignore it, and then later suffer to a more lethal consequence. And on the other side, if it's a non-impacting disease, and in the manufacturing, it's pretty much the other way, right? So you want, if manufacturing is working and it says it's not working, you want to know that, right? Because at least you'll get out of the system, so you'll not hit a bigger roadblock going forward. And it's saying when our false positive and false negative equal is any software that you design to measure those platforms, right? So the software is all about accuracy, right? So it needs to tell you. So the software needs to appreciate both false negative and false positive. So if you're building a software to measure HIV, if you're building a software to measure error rate in manufacturing, both holds equal value because they both are wrong. And then you need to it just muck around with your analysis. So you need to like we need to understand what's going on. So typically, if you are in a platform business, both are treated equal. If you are on the serving side of it, whichever is more you're happier with, the other one, if it goes, you would rather see that one is higher than the other one. So I don't know if that makes sense. Make sense?
It does. It
Okay.
does. To be prepared. Be
It's
prepared. Be
be pre-
aware and prepared.
be prepared and be positive. I know that's
Yeah.
so. Let's get to
So
the right
the
side
video
of
of the week.
the video of the week,
Yeah,
reimagining the role of
I
data
really
in
liked
government.
this one because it addressed the how data is used in government, and it addressed what we could be doing in the future to have these conversations of more transparency and data visualization and just more awareness about how citizens can be scientists. So I really like this article or this video.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jeff Chan, who's the director of analytics for the fire department of New York. And those were some good stories that he told about the amazing things that the New York Fire Department has done with their own data science team. So that was exciting to
He
see
is,
what
I think. So
potential
he
and possibilities can be.
I'm very impressed with Jeff. I think
Yeah.
he's very methodical, and I think now he has shifted. He went to NASA, and then now I think he's in Department of Commerce somewhere. So wherever he's going, he's just fixing the civic system. So kudos, shout out to him. He's doing a good job there. And I think
Yeah.
I met another gentleman. And I think he's in one of our podcasts from Enigma. So he used to work with Bloomberg, and he created a model for New York City for a fire response team or something. So he was one of the project managers involved, and Jeff was one of the architects of that framework. So I think it's a wonderful video to see. Excuse me. What happens? What's happening in the New York, and how New York is actually coping up with the fire department scenarios. And I think in one of the conversation I asked him, when do we be 100% secure, right? In predicting fire, it's as simple or as complicated as cybersecurity. Never, right? So his take is that yeah, they are getting better at it. They're getting, so he said we could actually, they're comfortable in saying that our response time is this much. So that thing they're getting very close to, of like within X minutes you'll get a response, but getting like least casualty, and they're getting smarter with the casualty stuff as well. So it's interesting. Definitely, as you said, right? You said, Maria. I think he just talks about how people could contribute, how government needs data, how civic system actually would appreciate, and what we all could do to push the government in the data driven world, and pretty much like they are not the best. So that's
Just
very cool.
addressed a lot of the collaboration that happened, and so that was really exciting to see all the different folks that got together to help make the team and to help keep the analytics as something as a forefront for a priority. And they proved that they are not spending all day saving cats and trees. So I mean,
It
much more.
was,
They did much more than that, but I'm, just referencing that they have
yes.
a very in-depth process, and he went through a lot, and there was a lot of people involved, and it really takes a community.
I think that's the first moment that I realized that fire department is one of the most efficient data science engine in the world. So it's, I never realized that why, like you pretty much you underappreciate these things, right? You say, okay, I know when I call fire department they show up, but the very fact that they show up, and everything was so streamlined, and they have all the things that you need for your fire safety needs. They have their playbook ready. Like the data is playing behind every of these scenarios that we just ignore. We just say, okay, we take it for granted. But the beauty of, yeah, so that's fascinating. So, quote of the week: the temptation to form premature theories upon insufficient data is the bane of our profession, by Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
This is extrapolation. I think it's the It's the another fun thing that we are true we are too excited to build our conspiracy theories. That's why conspiracy theory is famous, right? That's why we love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something is cooking that we are not sure of, and I think that's in a way that's Sherlock Holmes like core competency as well. Something is cooking, like so
Yeah.
that's
Keep
true.
searching.
Keep searching, and I think yeah, premature theories, and I think it's the same with the extrapolation graphic, right? Or cartoon, like you when do you stop analysis and when like what is mature? What is the point of
Yeah.
maturity? No one knows. Like every analysis is so different. And actually, I met one of the executive at one of the company, and he told me that the more he dig, the more can of worms he finds. And when you're in that state, how can you give up? And when should so it was like it was creepy, right? So it's just like you say, I just let my people like give them enough liberty, and they're just playing along, but that really restrict the speed of decision making because they are just every time they're just over digging the data, and although they are finding things, but and maybe the things that they're finding of relatively low value, but it's good they're finding things. So it's that's I think that's $1 million question or $1 billion question for that matter.
Yeah.
What is the point of
That's just why I
maturity?
think there's so much more people need to be involved in the sciences as career paths, or just, from young children being geared towards, you know, uh, participating or having something to do with the sciences, because it's, every question doesn't have to come from a PhD data scientist to be answered. There are
Right.
lots of people that can be involved and collaborate to do that. And so um,
That's true.
having that kind of, just interest and that curiosity about it is something natural to us. And I think that more and more people, they care about this world, that the chaos is happening, and everyone has different, so they care about different parts of it, and they can be part of solving that.
You're right. And so well said. Let's go jump to the next one. Podcast of the week. So
Yes,
this one
that's
is
also why I like this guy. So
this
how
is
do you pronounce his last name? Robin?
so his name is
Sudato.
Robin Thotungal. So he is chief data scientist at EPA, and
Right.
we all know EPA. I think EPA is in news lately. All the global warming and everything. So we are hearing a lot about what is EPA, how is EPA responding, and all that debacle or things that are happening in the organization nowadays. So we had a good conversation. So I think one of the things that I'm fan of with when it comes to government agencies, they are very political agencies, right? Every 2 year, their culture change, the party change, or every 4 year, they 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 are always chasing after like so they don't have time to build the culture, and the biggest culture is that there's going to be a change in the culture. So that's how can you build an organization around that phenomena, and almost everything that they do impacts almost everyone living in the country. So he very candidly shared his journey and how he is designing this organization of the future, what it takes to be a chief scientist of such an organization, what is his outlook when it comes to team building, group building, EPA's requirements, and all that. So again, beautiful conversation and doing some cutting edge stuff, and definitely it was awesome to have a conversation with him, and must check it out because I think as a private company or private citizens, we can learn a lot about how government function in many of these areas because these guys are really dealing some of the cultural, like some of the transformational changes. The biggest challenge for any business is to have a smooth transformation,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
government agencies transform every now and then. So every political gimmick, the leader's thrown out, the leader change, they have to cope up, they establish themselves, pick it up. So their model appreciates or accounts for these radical changes. So a lot of key insights from the conversation that folks could get. It's definitely a good podcast to check out. What do you think,
Yeah,
Maria?
I really like how he addressed the culture, and how that is going to take a little bit from everyone,
Right.
and getting that culture and changing the culture in the organization. And he seems very passionate about that, and taking, the environment and the things that he cares about, and applying the data aspect to it. So it was a really good 48 minutes there.
Right. Oh, I absolutely. It was like, yeah. It was. I had a ball conversing with him. So for sure. So let's talk about the fact of the week. 5 year.
Yeah.
There will be 50 billion smart connected devices in the world, and all developed and collect, analyze, and share data. Data exhaust. So sure, good stat to have. I don't think so. It can give anyone an raise in the eyebrows. So we all expect that we are seeing the impact of too much data around us. I think it's just. I think one key takeaway from the entire newsletter that I could think is security, right? So I think that one thing that is sticking to me at this point is uh, know what you share.
Security and the HR part. I think,
HR
the
part.
importance on talent, and
Right.
having, some awareness of what's going on around talent, so that you
Maria, I
can.
think I think it's a maybe it's a good idea. Maybe starting next newsletter, we can actually at the end of the day we can explain five of our takes. What do you think, Maria? What is so you said talent analytics.
Yeah,
So talent is one of yours.
yeah,
Cybersecurity
the
is another.
cybersecurity one is definitely on my top, and then the HR analytics piece. I also feel like there was. Let me just go back through it really quick. Oh, the extrapolation, right?
Right. So I think we have it. We have similarity there. So I have also
Yeah, so I think those top
data
three.
data analysis paralysis. That theory. Security is at prime. Um, um, Playbook, like having the maturity model outlook on data science. I think that's pretty critical. That jumps out.
That's right.
Having a strong business, although it's pretty cliche, but it's relevant. I think we should keep that into account. And then building the data governance piece, like understanding sort of how government works and how you can replicate that model for private sectors, so they can actually build a corporation for change or something.
Mhm.
So anyhow, that brings us to close of this newsletter or
Yeah,
newscast, and we had a ball. It was fun. So thank you everyone for staying with us. And Maria, we are seeing again, thanks to our audience, we are seeing an uptick on few more views. So
great.
every podcast, 3 or 4 people are watching every day. So we can confidently say at least 10 people watch this podcast
All right.
with with their family of 30 or 40.
All right.
So I don't know. So it's like, yeah.
Over
So
the
we
microphone.
we are getting so thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for showing your support, and definitely. So now we can be cheesy and sell stuff. So if you don't want to hear it, just close your ears, shut the phone down, and send the kids to the room. I think this would get dirty very soon. Just kidding. So we Tao, check us out on Tao.ai, and next month we are releasing some of the cool features publicly. So we all will see. And thank you so much. Keep subscribe to our channel, recommend our podcast, like us, leave comments, let us know how we can improve our podcast, and do share with your friends and family, your uncle, aunts, grandma, grandpa, whoever you think would benefit from data analytics podcast. Do share them. um, if you are pregnant, if you're expecting, listen to this podcast. It's very critical for the new upcoming, because they would be data scientists. Just kidding.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
anyhow,
We're gonna get
thank
those kids and
we
make them
need to
data
get
scientists.
we need data scientists, guys. So you need to tell your kids, start them early. My
Yeah.
daughter is 6 and she's already solving random forest. Just kidding. So thank you everyone, and see you in the next podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on a certain